They said I was dead to them because I refused to fund my brother's insane plan. My parents dialed my work phone and sent a message. "We despise you. You're no longer our child." This was because I refused to send them cash for what I knew was my brother's fake kidnapping scheme. Looking back, they probably wish that was the worst of it. Growing up, my older brother treated me like his personal servant. Whenever he had assignments he didn't feel like doing, which was almost daily, he'd demand I complete them. If I dared refuse, he'd wreck my bedroom and make me tidy it up. I could have told my parents, but as a kid, all I wanted was his approval, so I kept it hidden. For years, I fed my parents stories about how thrilled I was to have Trent in my life. My deception was convincing, too convincing. When he broke my wrist after I refused to do his homework for 5 days in a row, they didn't believe me. "Trent would never do such a thing," my father snapped before smacking me for lying. Though every instinct urged me to retaliate against Trent, I held back. I knew if his abusive behavior went unpunished, it would eventually spill over to my parents. And I was right. At 16, when Trent was 19, I caught him pilfering money from our mother's handbag late at night. But snitching on him could have put me in danger, so I stayed silent. Over the next few weeks, I noticed him sneaking out at 2 a.m. every weekend. When he returned, the apartment stank of weed. I wasn't sure if my parents were aware, but a month later, I got my answer. Trent strolled in at 6 a.m. and my dad caught him. "Trent, what's going on, son? You've been coming home smelling of drugs for weeks," my dad said. I braced myself. Then came a loud slap. "I'm grown. I do what I want," Trent replied coldly before crashing in bed for the whole day. At dinner, I expected my dad to confront him, or at least say his actions were unacceptable. But instead, he just offered Trent the pepper shaker. We were all forced to act like a perfect family, pretending nothing was wrong. Maybe my parents were okay living in fear of their son, but I wasn't. So, a week later, I moved in with a friend who lived nearby. My parents never asked why, they knew the reason. I barely spoke to them after that. 5 years later, at 22, I was working as a data analyst, earning $50,000 a year. That's when I got the call. It was my mom, the first time she'd reached out since I left home. I answered hesitantly. She was sobbing. "Sweetheart, your dad and I need your help. Trent's trapped in Colombia." I took a deep breath to steady myself and asked what was happening. Then my dad's voice came through. Trent said he had a job lined up in Colombia, but right after he got in a cab from the airport, his so-called friends took his passport. They're demanding money to return it. "How much, Dad?" I asked, exasperated. "They want $12,000. If we don't pay now, it'll double tomorrow." I rubbed my temples. "Dad, I'm still paying off student loans and—" "Please, honey, we're desperate," my mom interrupted. I stared at my reflection in a nearby mirror. Was this really my life? I don't know why I agreed. Maybe I thought it would finally rid me of him. That idea alone made me ecstatic. I spent the next week grinning from ear to ear. But Trent ruined that too. Late one Thursday night, my mom called again. I didn't answer. She bombarded me with texts, begging for another $6,000 for Trent. Apparently, after the passport ordeal, my parents never made him come home. So Trent trusted the same people who'd stolen his passport. And now they'd taken him hostage and demanded more money. I told my mom no. Even if I wanted to help, I couldn't. My savings were gone. I'd already sold my car to cover student debt. In response, both parents texted me, calling me a shameful failure for not saving enough to help. I blocked their numbers, switched my phone to airplane mode, and slept peacefully with a satin eye mask. But they wouldn't leave me alone. 3 weeks later, my mom got through to my work phone. "We loathe you. You're disowned," she said first. Then my dad added, "When we couldn't pay the ransom, Trent's friends framed him for drug trafficking. He's facing a sentence. We may never see our son again, and it's your fault." "Any more good news?" I replied, smirking. I was about to hang up when I heard a voice in the background. It was Trent. "Tell her I'm getting 25 years. Maybe she'll care now." My stomach sank. They weren't in Colombia, they were calling from home. My family had scammed me and I'd fallen for it. I ended the call, hands trembling as I set down the phone. My coworkers stared, concerned, but I couldn't focus. I grabbed my personal phone and began resetting every password. Bank accounts, emails, social media, everything. My fingers flew as I enabled two-factor authentication wherever possible. I called my bank, requesting an immediate freeze on my accounts and new cards. The representative asked if it was due to fraud, and I confirmed. They added a security alert and promised new cards in 5 days. I did the same with my credit cards and signed up for credit monitoring. That night, I noticed something strange at home. My doormat was slightly off, and there were faint scratches near the lock. My pulse raced as I checked every room, phone ready to call 911. Nothing was stolen, but things were out of place. Mail shuffled, desk drawers slightly open. I went straight to the building's management. Security footage showed a hooded figure trying keys at my door at 2 p.m., eventually leaving. The image was too grainy for a clear face, but I knew it was Trent. The manager suggested a police report and offered to change my locks for free. I stayed at a hotel that night, too nervous to stay home. The next day, I returned with a locksmith, installing a deadbolt and chain lock. I ordered security cameras online, paying for next-day delivery. While waiting, I showed Trent's photo to my neighbors, asking them to alert me if they saw him. The cameras arrived, and I set them up Saturday afternoon, one in the hallway, one on my door, and one inside facing the entrance. I installed the app to monitor them remotely and tested the motion alerts. Everything worked perfectly. That evening, my landlord called. "Your parents came by, claiming they needed to check on you because you were acting odd. I refused them entry without your permission." I thanked him and asked him to call the police if they returned. He said they'd been pushy and made him uneasy. Checking my camera footage, I saw them at 3 p.m., my mom crying theatrically while my dad demanded access. They'd harassed my landlord for 20 minutes before leaving. On Monday, while checking my credit report, I found 3 unfamiliar credit cards, all maxed out. The applications, submitted 2 weeks earlier during the Colombia scam, used addresses close to mine but slightly altered. I spent hours calling each card company, filing fraud reports. They required police reports, so I went to the station with a folder of evidence. The officer was sympathetic, but said family-related identity theft cases were hard to prosecute. Over the next few days, I found more fraudulent accounts. A $5,000 loan, a store card, even an attempt to open a bank account in my name. Each discovery meant more calls, more paperwork, more police reports. My credit score tanked from 750 to 480 in weeks. My car buying plans were postponed indefinitely. Tuesday, my manager pulled me aside. "Your parents caused a scene in the lobby, saying you'd abandoned them in their time of need. Security escorted them out." She showed me footage. My mom sobbing about my neglect, my dad ranting about disloyal kids. Clients in the lobby looked uneasy. She suggested I work from home temporarily. I agreed, packing my desk that day. Working from home should have felt safer, but it made me paranoid. Every hallway noise had me checking my cameras. I kept the chain lock on even inside and ordered groceries online to avoid leaving. My world shrank because of my toxic family. A week later, my friend Catherine called. We'd been high school friends and stayed in touch. "I saw Trent at the gas station," she said. "He was asking about your address, job, and if you were seeing anyone. I said I didn't know, but I wanted to warn you." I thanked her and planned to alert other friends. Trent was clearly digging for information to exploit me further. I posted on social media, warning friends not to share my details with my family. The responses were shocking. Several people messaged me, saying Trent had contacted them with tales of a family emergency, even offering money for my address. Luckily, no one fell for it, but it showed his desperation. Through another friend, Nathan, I learned the truth. Trent had never gone to Colombia. He'd been living at home, dealing drugs from our parents' apartment. His earnings went to online gambling, where he'd lost thousands. My parents knew but enabled him. They'd taken out unaffordable loans to cover his debts. Nathan, who worked at a bank, had seen their loan applications. "They're in deep," he said over coffee. "Multiple loans, maxed out cards, even a second mortgage. They listed you as a reference, claiming you'd help pay." I contacted each lender, clarifying I hadn't agreed to anything. Some were understanding, others skeptical. I provided proof of my estrangement to protect myself. My cameras proved their worth 2 weeks later. Reviewing overnight footage, I saw movement at 3 a.m. Trent was in my hallway, inspecting my door and windows. He spent nearly an hour casing my place, even trying to peer through the peephole. The footage clearly showed his face. I filed another police report with the video. The officer suggested a restraining order but warned it could escalate things. I opted to rely on my enhanced security for now and shared the footage with building management, who banned him from the property. The next few weeks were calm. I worked remotely, disputing fraudulent accounts and rebuilding my credit. I hired a lawyer for the identity theft case, though she said prosecution was unlikely without stronger evidence. I kept meticulous records, hoping for a breakthrough. Then I set a trap. I created fake bank statements showing a large inheritance from a non-existent great aunt. I made fake investment statements showing $200,000 and a letter from a fictional law firm about the estate. I left these in a folder on my kitchen counter, visible from the window. I pretended to leave for a weekend trip, dragging a suitcase to my car and driving off. In reality, I parked at Catherine's nearby, monitoring my cameras. That night at 11 p.m., Trent appeared. He had a copy of my new key, likely stolen by my parents during one of their visits. He went straight to the kitchen, photographing the fake documents. He spent 20 minutes searching my apartment, taking cheap costume jewelry I'd planted. He locked the door behind him. I'd moved my valuables to a safe deposit box weeks earlier, so nothing important was taken. I backed up the footage to multiple locations and saved the phone recordings. This time, I had undeniable evidence. 3 days later, my parents called from an unknown number. I almost ignored it but answered out of curiosity. My mom was crying, claiming Trent needed $50,000 for emergency surgery after a hit and run. They'd seen the fake inheritance documents. I played along, asking for hospital details. They gave a detailed story with a fake hospital name and room number. I said I'd verify with the hospital directly. They provided a number, likely Trent with a voice changer. Instead, I called the police, showing them my break-in evidence. They were interested in the ongoing fraud attempt. We planned for me to play along while they prepared to arrest Trent during the money transfer. I called my parents back, agreeing to wire the money but insisting on an in-person transfer at a downtown bank for security. They agreed eagerly, thinking they'd won. I gave the police the details and they prepared. On the meeting day, I arrived early. Undercover officers were stationed around the bank. I sat in the lobby, calm despite my racing heart. My parents arrived looking frantic. Trent entered separately, trying to seem unconnected. I greeted them coolly and suggested we sit to discuss the transfer. As I pulled out my phone to start the transfer, I asked Trent about his accident. He spun a dramatic tale, faking pain. I nodded, typing as if processing the transfer. "One question," I said, locking eyes with Trent. "How did you photograph those inheritance documents from your hospital bed?" His face paled. My parents looked puzzled. I showed them printed screenshots of Trent in my apartment. "The police have the full video," I said calmly. "They're here now." Trent tried to flee, but officers arrested him for breaking and entering, identity theft, and attempted fraud. My parents screamed, calling me a betrayer, insisting family protects family. I watched impassively as they were escorted out, my dad still yelling about my betrayal. The fallout was quick. Trent's phone revealed he'd stolen from our parents for years, draining their retirement and taking loans in their names. The Colombia scam was his idea to extort me when their money ran out. My parents had to face reality when shown the evidence. Trent had stolen over $100,000, funding his drug dealing and gambling. They'd been in denial, refusing to see their perfect son's flaws, blaming me instead. Trent faced multiple felony charges. The evidence was airtight, and his lawyer pushed for a plea deal. He got 5 years in prison with mandatory drug rehab. At sentencing, he showed no remorse, claiming everyone was against him. I didn't attend but got updates from my lawyer. My parents faced bankruptcy, their retirement gone and debts piling up. They contacted me through my lawyer, begging for help. I stayed firm, sending them info on financial counseling and senior programs, but refusing money or housing. Repairing my credit took months. My lawyer helped me sue for damages, though my family had little to pay. The legal record protected me from future schemes. I moved to a new apartment with better security, leaving no forwarding address. I switched jobs, landing a better role with a company respecting my privacy. My salary rose to $65,000, and without my family's drain, I could save. Catherine, Nathan, and other friends became my chosen family. We celebrated holidays and supported each other, creating the loving environment I'd never had. A year later, Trent sent a letter from prison. I didn't read it, handing it to my lawyer for filing. My parents tried contacting me, but I ignored their messages and blocked their calls. I started therapy to heal from years of abuse and joined support groups for estranged people, finding solace in shared stories. I learned to trust again, realizing not everyone would exploit me. My career thrived without family drama. I earned promotions, built professional connections, and mentored new analysts. My credit score surpassed its previous high. I bought a reliable car and saved for a house. Sometimes I wondered about a different family, but I'd learned you can't choose your birth family, only your response. I chose to protect myself, building a stable, peaceful life. Surrounded by true supporters, I'd won. That was my ultimate victory. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you don't miss our upcoming stories. See you in the next one.